Hello, on behalf of myself, Marie Olofsdotter, and the East Side Art Council, I welcome you to today's Art at Home video. I have a really exciting project for you. But before we get going, I just wanted to mention a little bit about myself. If you hear an accent, that's because I was born and raised in Sweden, but right now I live here in Minneapolis, right by the Mississippi River. And as an artist, I'm a picture book writer and a poet, and a painter and a mixed media artist and a book artist, which is the focus of our activity today. You are going to make a pop-up book. And we're going to use materials that you should have at home. I don't know if you can notice what this is made out of. A paper bag. And then since I'm a person who loves writing, we're also going to write a one-line poem, or more lines if you want to, and I will focus on that at the end of this video. Now for materials, you're going to need paper bags, if you have any colored papers, or any cool things to decorate with. What I pulled up here are some yarn, ribbons, and buttons. Anything you have, or if you have none of those, you're going to be okay still. You're going to need some glue, maybe a stapler is an option, maybe some tape, also an option. And the glue is the regular bottle glue, and a glue stick would work too. A pencil, crayons might be fun, and then scissors. That is the materials you're going to need. So let's get started. So the first step, put that out of the way, my second bag. First step is to take your paper bag and fold the bottom down, and that gives you a crease, and I want you to cut that part right off. Then open up your bag as wide as it can go. And that gives you a fold on this side and a fold on that side. And when I look at my bag, I actually have a fold right here. And I'm going to cut that off. And if that's hard to see on your bag, you can fold this one in, and you can use that as a guide. Now you might want a really wide book too, and then you could just leave it and cut it at that crease. Now we have these strings on my bag anyway. You might have paper handles, and we're just gonna rip those right off. And if it's a little messy here, doesn't matter. At least it doesn't matter to me. And then rip them off. And I'm holding down so that I don't rip my bag. And if you rip the bag, that's okay too, because we're going to put a cover on it. So now, fold it back. And grab your pencil and put your finger right in the middle of here. And I happen to have a little writing together co-op, because this is a co-op bag. So that's something to point out. Keep the part without text on the inside and the text on the outside. Now put your finger in the middle, and above it, about an inch, draw kind of a squiggly line and stop at that fold. And below your finger, about an inch, draw some teeth. There. Then we're going to take our scissors and cut on the line only. Cutting on the line. back. Then you're going to open your bag. You're going to push this part in while you push the top and the bottom down, and then push down a little bit on it, and ta-da! There's your pop-up. So what we want to do next is create a cover so that we can cover up this hole here. So this is when you need your second bag. It's laying over here. And the first parts, the first steps are the same as when we created the mouthpiece. You fold your bag, you cut the bottom off and open it. And then, as I mentioned, if you wanted a wider book, it could have been cut here, but I actually wanted it a little narrower. So I was suggesting folding this in as a guide and then cutting along that edge. It might be helpful here to do a line, which I didn't mention before. Now, as you might have noticed, I'm not super concerned with straight lines because I'm making a creature. I never make a creature with straight lines. So here we go again, ripping. Ripping. Ripping this off. And again, if you happen to rip the paper bag, don't worry about it. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. So then again, the text we want on the inside. So we're going to fold it here. This you could rip off if you have this if you want to, or you could leave it for some character for your book. Either way. And open up. And we're going to put our mouthpiece right here. So now what I'm doing, I'm matching this fold with this fold, putting it down. And when I fold this over, just as a test fold, I should cover it. Yay! And here I have some extra lines, which I actually love for some character for my book. So there we go. I'm going to use bottled glue. Glue stick would work here also. And on the mouthpiece only, not in here, not on the cover, I'm going to put a squiggly line right around my mouthpiece, and then right around the edge, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a snowfall in here. Or it could be a squiggly line, whatever seems fun to you. Now we don't want any glue lakes, but just enough glue to hold the cover in place. There, make sure it's still in the fold, and then close your book. And I have a little glue here that I'm going to push down. Then we flip it over and open it. Same thing. A line around the edge. A little glue blizzard or glue squiggles, glue spirals. You could even do a little happy face if you want. And have fun. As you can see, this is going to be a big book. And then close it. And let's test open. Yay! Now at this point, you can push this down if you want a little, push it down a little bit. And at this point, I would say leave your book to dry for maybe 5 minutes. There, I've given my pop-up some time to dry. And now comes the really fun part, decorating. Now I'm looking at it, and to me it seems a little wider than I want, so I'm actually going to make it a little narrower. Of course I won't be cutting on this side because that's where my mouth is, but over here. Now on the sample that I showed you before, I'm going to reach for it, here, I had a straight line pop up. But as an option, I could do a squiggly line. So I'm going to do that to show you. Now some of you might want to draw, but I like to, before you cut, but I like to freehand it. Now make sure again that you don't cut on the side where you have your mouth, or so far in that you cut your mouth. But here we go. Squiggly edged pop-up. Let's see how that looks. Yes, I like it. Now, what do I want to add first? On mine, I had these funny like string handles, so I think I'm going to use those. I'm going to cut it in half. And on my other one, I had arms, but for this one, I'm going to put them down as legs, and I'm going to do my glue. Now, to hold this down, I could use either tape or I could use a stapler. For some of you, it might be helpful to have an adult help you with a stapler. And just be aware when you use a stapler, it can have sharp edges, so you don't poke yourself. I'm going to put this over here. And again, here you can try this if you have a stapler. Tape would work too, and if you have neither, you can just hold it in place and that will also work, depending on what you add for legs. So here they are. What else do I want to add to this? I think this is good for right now. I might have an idea soon for something else. Now, for my arms, I'm going to reach for some leftover paper back, and you should have a couple of these pieces too. And I'm going to cut it in half. It's a little easier to deal with. And it's folded in half. I'm going to do the text on the outside. And I'm going to freehand an interesting claw. And again, some of you might want to draw this first, but I really like to just freehand stuff. There we go. And ta-da! If you have a fold like this and don't like it, you could just fold it in the opposite direction, and that usually works to hold it in place. So a little leftover. So glue it down wherever you want it. Do I want it down here? I actually do. So this is where you get creative and you try different things until you find just the thing you like. And claw on that side. And I've got spindly legs. I'm going to leave them just like this. I think that looks fun. But I do want some really tall ears. So again, here's my leftover. I'm going to cut a really tall ear. Oops. Holding that in place. There. And ta-da! Oh, and this is that little fold that I could just fold the other direction and then that should hold. And putting that up here and putting that Here. What I really like about using a paper bag for this project is that I do have all these helper lines. There. Wow. Now I want mine to have some fur. So for this, an option could be to use crayon. You could also use yarn, which I'll show you in a moment. And I'm going to give my creature, I think I'm going to be making a creature, some red squiggly fur all over. Yes. And then I want eyes. And I want my eyes to actually pop. And I do have some colored paper. And if you have any colored paper, you could use that. Or just regular white printer paper. Or you could use, if you want another color than the brown paper bag, if you have a different colored paper bag, or a magazine, or even a newspaper for an accent, something that pops. So I folded it in half, and I'm going to make a round eye. And again, I want my eyes to pop, so I chose a color that's really different from the lighter brown there. Do I want them over here? No, I want them close in here. So this again, gluing it down. And again, I used the bottle glue, but if you have a glue stick, that also works. There. That part just look. And here you see this white of the glue that actually dries clear, so I could smear it. And that here will still dry clear. Now, and I had mentioned buttons, and I want some button details. And these are two different ones, which is kind of fun. Oh yeah, put those in there. There, boop, there. Maybe I want it this direction. Yeah, there we go. And for fur, I was going to show you, this will be a good color, kind of sticks out. I'm going to take a bunch of yarn. Ribbon could work for this too. If you have any kind of ribbon, that's kind of a small ribbon, but skinny ribbon. Cutting it off. Here, wrapping it, wrapping it, wrapping it, wrapping it there. Now I want this to be bangs on my pop-up. So this is a little long. I'm going to cut that in half. And you notice I'm not measuring because mine is a wild creature and I don't want it to be perfectly even anywhere. That's why I don't even mind these rough spots where I cut off my handles, or ripped out my handles, I should say. So there. This will dry here. It'll take a while, but if you wanted to support it while drying, and if you do have tape and masking tape or any kind of tape, duct tape, whatever kind of tape you have will work. I'm just going to tape it in place. There. Oh, there's my creature. Of course, you could add, if you have a ribbon, you could add a detail somewhere. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to add a ribbon detail in the ear. Half of that. So you just experiment and use whatever you have. I wanted this to be a little pointier. Whatever you have at home. Fabric, yarn, buttons, anything you can think of that fits the character of whatever you're making as a pop-up. There. I love my creature. Now it's time to finish off our book with a poem. So on the sample that I showed you in the beginning of our class, I'd added white paper and I have a one-line poem in there. And so let's do this. Take a white piece of paper. This is going to be too big. So I'm going to cut it into an interesting flower shape. Of course, you could fold it in half and cut it into a rectangle, whatever shape you want. Here. And I'm going to glue that on. Put a line around and some squiggles. And I'm going to put mine on the front of my book. Could go on the back as well. I'm going to put it right here. So now I'm ready for my poem. So for our poem, I thought it might be fun to imagine what you would do if you were the creature or animal that you made. And for that, we're going to use a starter line, and it's going to be straightforward. If I was a, I would. If I was a whatever, I would, and what would you do? So I have a couple of samples of student poetry that uses this pattern. So let me read those to you, and then you're going to write your own. So this one is by a 5th grader, and it's titled, Imagine That. If I was a robin, I would rob a bin. If I was an Oriole, I would want to order some Oreos. If I was a blue jay, I would use blue jam on my toast. If I was an ovenbird, I wouldn't need to migrate. If I was a bobolink, I would link up to a kebab. Let's do one more. And this is No Cloudy Day, same pattern. If I were the sky, there would be no more cloudy days. If I were a bird, I would chirp so people enjoy the day. If I were the stars, I would twinkle brightly for everyone. If I were a wolf, I would sing the world a lullaby. So this was a group poem from Mississippi Creative Arts from 3rd grade. So again, the pattern is if I was, I would. So let me look at mine here. If I was a green-eyed monster, I would hide behind the pine trees. So that's what I would write. On this other one, there it is again. I wrote, if I was a swamp monster, I would dance with the frogs. Now you write your poem, whatever you want, and if you notice here, I decided to decorate with crayons, so you can do that too, and this will be the finishing touch of your book. You can add a title too if you want, and then of course, really important, to write by and your first and last name. So that is it for my lesson. Have fun finishing up your book.